The rain had started before midnight and never found a reason to stop. A steady silver hiss against the fire escape outside Ivy Torres's kitchen window. The kind of weather that turned Queens sidewalks into mirrors and made every stairwell smell like wet concrete and old paint. At 2:43 a.m., she sat at a chipped laminate table with both hands wrapped around a mug of instant coffee that had gone cold an hour earlier. Her shoulders ached from hunching over seams all day. Her fingertips were raw from pins and thread. The overhead bulb buzzed with a nervous electrical hum that made the whole room feel tired with her. 3 envelopes lay in front of her like accusations. 1 overdue electric notice with a red stripe across the top, 1 pharmacy receipt for Mateo's inhalers, and 1 folded school form she still had not signed because the optional activity fee was not optional when they would not release uniforms without it. Her phone screen stayed face up beside them, bright in the dim room. 2 missed calls from landlord. 1 text from him, 3 words and no punctuation. We need payment. She opened the payroll app anyway, as if the number might change if she looked at it differently. $17.09 until Friday. She breathed in through her nose, counting to 4, then out through her mouth, because panic made her chest tight, and she could not afford tight. Not with Mateo asleep in the next room and his inhaler down to 12 doses. Not with rent due in 5 days. Not with the electric company giving her exactly 48 hours before service interruption. She tapped open her notes app, where she kept survival math in a list of blunt entries. Rent, light bill, inhalers, Metro card refill, rice, eggs, detergent, thread spools. The numbers did what they always did, climbed higher than the money. From the hallway came the thin sound of the upstairs couple arguing in 2 languages, then the plumbing thud of someone flushing on the 4th floor, then silence again. The building had its own pulse, a restless circulation of other people's lives moving around her thin walls, but her apartment always felt like an island when it got this late. The refrigerator rattled. A draft slid under the back door and touched her bare ankle like ice. She pulled her cardigan tighter and stared at the electric notice until the red stripe blurred. By day, she hemmed gowns in a midtown atelier where the women arriving for fittings stepped out of black cars and apologized if they had to stand for more than 5 minutes. Ivy pinned French seams, hand-finished lace, repaired beading so delicate it took an hour to replace what one careless hand could rip in 3 seconds. She worked bent over mannequins under clean white lights, while music without lyrics played through hidden speakers, and nobody asked her name unless they needed something fixed immediately. By night, when cooks split palms on broken glass, or drivers sliced knuckles on crate bands, or a dishwasher burned himself on steam and did not want urgent care forms and insurance questions, someone called Ivy. Her nursing license had lapsed 18 months earlier, not because she had forgotten dates or stopped caring, but because renewal fees and continuing education hours required money and time. In the same season, her mother died, and Mateo started wheezing at dawn twice a week. She still kept sterile strips, gauze rolls, lidocaine packets, and a suture kit in a metal tin under the sink. She still knew where to press, what to clean, when to elevate, when to insist on a hospital no matter how hard, someone argued. She did not advertise, did not post, did not ask about causes. People were careful with introductions. The calls came anyway. At 1:17 a.m., she had ridden 2 stops on the E train to a bakery loading dock in Jackson Heights, where a prep cook named Luis sat on an overturned milk crate with a tea towel wrapped around his hand. The cut had been deep but clean, a narrow split between thumb and forefinger from a snapped bagel slicer guard. He had been shaking from cold and embarrassment more than pain. Ivy had irrigated the wound with saline from her kit, while rain drummed against corrugated metal overhead, then placed 3 neat sutures under a battery lamp his cousin held too close. "You need a tetanus booster," she had said. "Tomorrow, not next week." He nodded like he meant it. She doubted he would go. Louise had pressed folded bills into her palm at the end, eyes down. "I know it's late," he said. "Thank you, Ivy." She had tried to hand 2 bills back when she saw his kitchen shoes split at the toe, but he had closed her fingers around the money with both of his and shaken his head. "My daughter has school pictures tomorrow," he told her quietly. "If I miss shift, no check." She understood without asking the rest. She gave him spare gauze and wrote aftercare instructions on the back of a flower invoice in block letters so his wife could read them if his hand stiffened overnight. On the subway home, she kept her kid on her lap and watched rainwater run down the windows in crooked lines. Now she unfolded the bills from her pocket and lined them on the table with practiced precision. 40 in 10s, 30 in 5s, 11 in 1s, and 4 quarters sticky from someone's soda spill. $82. She separated 20 for MetroCard and lunch money, tucked 10 into a jar labeled Inhaler in blue marker, and set the rest beside the rent envelope that felt thinner each week, no matter what she fed it. Her stomach cramped from hunger, then settled into a dull twist she ignored. She had eaten half a roll at 4 in the afternoon and a spoonful of peanut butter before leaving for Louise. There were 2 eggs left in the fridge, and one of them floated when dropped in water. Her phone vibrated again. This time it was her brother's school nurse, sent after midnight, because the automated system time-stamped everything. Reminder: please submit updated asthma action plan, plus physician signature by Monday. Ivy closed her eyes. Monday meant finding an appointment she could afford, then leaving work early, then risking docked hours she could not absorb. She set the phone down carefully, as if sudden motion might shatter whatever thin control she had left. In the next room, Matteo coughed once in his sleep, a dry, small sound that made her move before thinking. She checked his forehead. Cool. Checked his breathing even. Checked the inhaler on his nightstand, still there, counter showing 012 in tiny gray numbers. When she returned to the kitchen, she wrote out the next day in a narrow column on the back of the electric notice. 5:40 alarm, 6:15 bus, 7:20 unlock side entrance at atelier. 9 o'clock first fitting. Lunch, maybe? Call clinic for action plan form. Pick up Matteo 4:30 if no overtime. Hemline corrections after dinner. She stopped, pen hovering. There was no room for anything going wrong, which meant something would. That had become the rule she planned around. She opened the cupboard for ibuprofen, found 1 tablet, and snapped it in half to make it last 2 nights. At 3:02 a.m., she stood at the sink rinsing dried blood from her hands, where it had seeped beneath her nails through torn gloves, the water running rusty, then clear. Her reflection in the dark window looked older than 29. Cheekbones sharper, eyes ringed with violet shadows. She touched the bridge of her nose and felt the ghost pressure of her old N95 mask from hospital shifts. The muscle memory of 12-hour rotations and fluorescent dawns. She had loved that work once. Loved the certainty of protocols, the clean hierarchy of triage and charting and handoff reports. Now her skills lived in side rooms, loading docks, back stairwells, and borrowed kitchens where people paid in cash because official systems cost more than injury. A damp envelope was tucked under her door when she looked, its corner swollen from rain dragged in on someone's shoe. Not a letter, just a printed notice from building management about upcoming maintenance assessments. Language polished enough to hide what it meant. Higher fees, faster eviction threats, no repairs unless pushed. She flattened it on the table beside everything else and let out a quiet breath that shook at the end. Fatigue sat in her bones like wet sand. Fear was narrower sharper, a wire under the skin. She could keep working. She could keep stretching dollars. She could keep saying yes when people knocked, because no one else answered at that hour. What she could not do was pretend the wall was not close now. Close enough that one missed shift, one bad attack, one shut-off notice might collapse the careful architecture of their days. By the second week of October, she had started measuring her life in charged phones, full inhalers, and how long she could keep the lights on without opening another envelope. She set the alarm for 5:40, turned off the buzzing kitchen bulb, and stood in darkness listening to the rain tap against the fire escape and the faint wheeze of old pipes behind the walls. Then she carried the cold mug to the sink, rinsed it, and laid out tomorrow's damp shoes by the radiator. Because survival, in her world, began before dawn and never waited for permission. She checked Mateo one last time before lying down, set her phone face up on the crate she used as a nightstand, and closed her eyes while rain kept ticking against the fire escape like fingernails on metal. Sleep came in thin strips instead of rest. At 5:40, the alarm cut through the dark, and her body answered before her mind had caught up. She dressed in the half-light, pulled on the damp shoes she had tried to revive by the radiator, packed a heel cushion for the blister on her left foot, and heated water for oatmeal she did not have time to finish. Mateo stood in the kitchen doorway, rubbing one eye, hair flattened on one side, his inhaler clutched in his fist like a toy he couldn't misplace. "Bus now?" he asked. "Bus now," she said, smoothing his hoodie collar. "You eat your banana on the way. Full one, not 3 bites." He made a face, but he nodded. Outside, the morning had that washed steel color October wore when the rain had not decided to leave. She dropped him at school with 2 minutes to spare, kissed the top of his head, and moved fast toward the subway, shoulder already tightening from the bag of pinned sample swatches and repair kit knocking against her hip. By 7:22, she had unlocked the side entrance at the atelier and stepped into conditioned air that smelled like steam, wool, and expensive perfume samples. The room was all controlled brightness. White walls, spotless mirrors, bolts of silk stacked by color like paint chips for people who had never looked at a grocery receipt before buying peonies. Ivy clocked in, tied her tape measure around her neck, and bent into work. Morning fittings blurred into hems and darts and quiet apologies when clients shifted impatiently on raised platforms. Her stomach burned from coffee and no food. At 9:10, exactly as the antique wall clock clicked over, the owner's voice carried from the main floor, polished and sharp enough to stop 3 conversations at once. "Ivy, front now." She wiped her hands on her apron and stepped out from behind the curtain partition. Celeste Marchand stood beside a bride in an ivory gown, edged with hand-beaded Chantilly lace, one hand lightly resting on the woman's shoulder as if staging a portrait. Celeste wore a cream suit, pearl earrings, and a smile that did not reach her eyes. "Tell Mrs. Klein what happened to the off-cut panel from Look 12, Celeste said. Ivy felt every face angle toward her. 2 junior fitters froze with pins between their lips. Mrs. Klein, diamonds at her throat, looked mildly bored. "I used the panel for internal reinforcement on the train seam," Ivy said evenly. "The original stabilizer was pulling. It would have torn during movement." Celeste tilted her head, without authorization. "It would have failed on the runway stairs," Ivy said. "I made a technical call. You made a financial one with my inventory." Celeste let a beat pass, then turned to the client with an airy laugh. "You see what I manage. Brilliant hands, no discipline. We all pay for improvisation." Heat crawled up Ivy's neck. She kept her expression still because humiliation in rooms like this got you replaced by lunch. Celeste tapped a tablet and continued. I'm docking 6 hours from this week's payroll for fabric loss and protocol breach. Sign acknowledgement before shift end. Mrs. Klein's gaze skimmed Ivy's damp cuffs and scuffed shoes, then drifted away, already done with her. The class contrast was always clean in this place. Vintage crystal over the consultation table, imported espresso steaming for clients, and Ivy calculating whether 6 lost hours meant choosing between detergent and eggs. "Understood," Ivy said. Celeste's smile brightened. "Good. Also, since Thomas called out, you'll do the Pellegrini delivery. Penthouse transfer, hand carry only. Take service route. And please, for everyone's comfort, dry off before you enter the residence." The last line landed exactly where it was meant to. Ivy nodded once and took the garment bag from the rack, fingers careful around the covered neckline. In the workroom, Nia, the youngest fitter, hissed softly under her breath. That was low. Ivy adjusted the hanger hook and checked the address card clipped to the zipper pull. East River Tower, penthouse level, signature required. "Low is still legal," she said. "Can you cover my noon alteration?" Nia squeezed her forearm. "I'll do it." "You eat something." Ivy almost laughed. "With what time?" "With theft. I stole half a granola bar from my own bag." Nia shoved the wrapped piece into Ivy's palm. "Take it." Ivy tucked it into her pocket without argument and headed out again, rain beating along the hem of the garment cover by the time she reached the avenue. The tower rose from the block in black glass and pale stone. The lobby beyond its revolving doors, a chamber of marble and muted gold that reflected light like water. She gave her name at the front desk. The doorman looked at the delivery code, then at her, then past her, as if waiting for the real courier to appear. "Service elevator," he said, already turning away. "I need a resident signature at destination," Ivy replied. His eyes slid back, cool and flat. "Then get one upstairs. Service route." She passed through a side corridor where carpet turned to rubber matting, and fresh lilies gave way to detergent and metal polish. The service elevator shuddered as it climbed. 48, 49, 50. The doors opened into a quieter hall lined with textured wallpaper and recessed lighting too warm to be practical. A valet in fitted black stood near a console table with a tablet in hand. He was young, maybe 22, with a split knuckle crudely taped and shoulders held too high. "Delivery for Pellegrini residence," Ivy said. His gaze flicked to her face, then to the garment bag, then over her shoulder as if checking whether someone had followed her. His hand trembled when he reached for the tablet stylus. "You're at the wrong door," he whispered. She frowned. "This is 52A. He swallowed. "Wrong door," he repeated, quieter this time, and keyed a code into a side panel with shaking fingers. "Use the next corridor. Do not stop if anyone speaks." The doors at the far end stayed closed. No music, no voices. Just the low mechanical hum of hidden ventilation and the soft crackle of rain against distant glass. Ivy felt a prickle move along her skin, the old triage instinct that noticed what did not fit. The taped knuckle, the tremor he was trying to suppress, the way his jaw clenched after each sentence as if words were expensive. She shifted the garment bag to her other hand. "You should clean that wound," she said, nodding to his hand. "Tape over dirt breeds infection." For 1 second, his expression opened into bare surprise, almost gratitude. Then it shuddered. "Please go." She went. The alternate corridor curved toward a set of double doors, where a house manager in a charcoal suit met her with clipped politeness and a digital signature pad. "Transaction complete. No eye contact longer than required. She left as quickly as protocol allowed, the service elevator descending with a hollow drop in her stomach she could not explain. By the second evening after that delivery, the rain had thinned to a mist, and a black sedan idled across from her building as she walked Mateo home from the corner store, with milk and 2 discounted cans of soup. It could have been anyone waiting for someone. Queens blocks held idling cars like they held pigeons and broken umbrellas. Still, when she glanced back after unlocking the front door, the sedan's headlights cut off at the exact moment she looked. She told herself she was tired. She told herself pattern recognition was a hazard when your life depended on anticipating trouble. She made Mateo grilled cheese, split 1 sandwich in half for herself, reviewed his math sheet, and laid out his inhaler and spacer for morning. At 11:18, she took out trash and saw the same sedan parked half a block down, wipers moving slow across the windshield though the sky had cleared. On the third night, wind came hard off the river, pushing damp cold into the stairwell through a cracked lobby pane someone had taped and never replaced. The sedan was there again, engine low, dark body reflecting street lamp sodium in broken lines. Ivy climbed to the 3rd floor with groceries digging into her fingers and listened to footsteps below that stopped when she stopped. When she moved again, they resumed, measured and unhurried. By the time she reached her landing, the sound had disappeared. Inside, Mateo was already asleep, one arm flung over his blanket, breathing steady. She locked the deadbolt, slid the chain, and stood in her kitchen with all lights off except the stove hood lamp, the small cone of yellow making the rest of the room feel farther away than it was. Her throat tightened without warning. Not panic exactly. Pressure. The sense of occupied silence, like a room after argument, like a corridor outside an ICU bay, when everyone waits for one door to open. At 2:51 a.m., she texted Nia a one-line joke about hemming tool in purgatory and got no reply. At 2:56, she opened her metal tin and laid out supplies on the table by habit she did not interrogate. Celine, sterile drape, curved needle driver, sutures, gauze. Her hands moved with efficient calm while her pulse climbed. She checked the lock again, checked Mateo's inhaler counter, checked the peephole and saw only dim hall light and peeling paint opposite her door. At exactly 3 a.m., 3 knocks landed, evenly spaced, precise enough to slice through the apartment's thin noises and pin her where she stood. Not a neighbor's pounding, not the landlord's impatient fist. Controlled, deliberate. She approached the door, every muscle taut, and kept the chain on when she cracked it open 2 inches. A man in a tailored dark suit stood in the hallway, rain darkening the shoulders, one hand pressed tight to his right ribs where blood had soaked through wool in a widening stain. He held himself upright with practiced control, dark eyes fixed on hers, voice low baritone and barely contained when he spoke. "I need stitches, Miss Torres. No hospital, no names. 5 minutes." Ivy kept one hand on the chain and did not widen the gap. Rainwater dripped from the hem of his coat to the hallway linoleum in steady taps, and the metallic smell reaching her was unmistakable even through the crack in the door. The man's breathing was controlled, but too deliberate, like each inhale had to be chosen. He had not slurred his words. He had not leaned against the wall. He had simply stated terms as if this were a transaction in an office at noon, instead of a bleeding stranger in a 3rd-floor corridor at 3 in the morning. "Show me your other hand," she said. His left hand came up slowly, palm open. No weapon. A gold ring at the little finger, matte black watch, rain dark cuff. "You're alone?" A beat passed. "At this door, yes." It was not reassurance. It was precision, and somehow that made her throat tighten more. Behind her, through the thin apartment wall, Mateo turned in his sleep and gave a soft cough that sliced through her chest. The man's eyes shifted once toward the sound, then back to her face. "I won't come in unless you allow it, but I'm leaving blood in your hallway either way." A hard clatter rose from the stairwell below, metal on metal, then the muffled curse of someone stumbling on wet steps. Ivy flinched. The stranger's jaw set. He angled his body just enough to place his shoulder between her door and the stairwell, a movement so automatic it told her he had practiced it many times. "Decision," he said quietly. "Now." Fear and training collided in her like two trains on the same track. She should close the door. She should bolt it, drag the dresser in front of it, call someone official, pretend none of this had reached her threshold. She should protect Mateo first, always first. But blood loss did not pause for moral clarity, and men hunting a wounded target did not usually stop at polite boundaries. If he collapsed in the hallway, the noise alone could wake her brother into a full breathing episode. She slid the chain free. "Inside, shoes off at the mat," she said, voice thinner than she wanted. No blood trail past the kitchen. For the first time, a flicker of surprise crossed his face. He stepped in without touching her, shut the door with his heel, and stood still while she locked deadbolt and chain again. Up close, the tear in his suit jacket was at the right flank, just above the hip line. The shirt beneath was soaked and sticking to him. He was taller than her by nearly a head, broad-shouldered under tailored wool, face composed and pale under olive skin. Dark eyes, controlled movement, room silencing authority, and appealing queen's walk-up. "I need to see the wound," she said. "Kitchen," he answered. No argument, no wasted words. She led him under the buzzing bulb and pointed at the hard-backed chair by the table. Supplies were already laid out on the clean dish towel she used as a sterile field. Saline, syringe, suture packet, lidocaine, gauze, needle driver. Her hands moved because her fear needed instructions. "Jacket off," she said. "Shirt too." He peeled the jacket away with a tight exhale and folded it over the chair back instead of dropping it, even now. The shirt stuck at the wound. She cut fabric with trauma shears, exposing a deep laceration that tracked along the lower ribs, torn edge but no obvious puncture depth. Not a gunshot entry. Likely a grazing round or blade pull across motion. Heavy bleeding earlier, slower now. "Can you breathe full?" she asked. He did. It hurt. She saw it in the brief pull at his mouth. "Yes." "Dizzy?" "No." "Nausea?" "No." "Any meds, allergies, anticoagulants?" "None." Another crash sounded in the stairwell, louder this time, followed by voices. Male. 2 of them, too low to make out words. Ivy's gloved fingers paused over the saline syringe. The man noticed. "Focus on me, Miss Torres." Her head snapped up. "Don't tell me to focus in my own kitchen." A strange, almost smile touched one corner of his mouth, gone in an instant. "Then stitch fast." She irrigated the wound in a steady stream. He did not move, though his left hand gripped the table edge until his knuckles whitened. Pink fluid ran into the absorbent pad she had placed beneath him, then cleared. No debris. No bubbling from the wound with respiration. Good sign. Her pulse still raced hard enough she felt it in her wrists. "Local anesthetic," she said. "It will burn first. Do it." She infiltrated lidocaine in small arcs, waited seconds, tested sensation with forceps tip. He gave one curt nod. She began placing interrupted sutures, each bite of the needle precise despite the tremor that came and went at the base of her thumb. 3 stitches in, someone stopped outside her door. Not a knock, just presence. Weight on old floorboards. Then the faint scrape of a shoe near the threshold. Ivy's hand froze midair, thread taut between her fingers. Her whole body listened. The person outside stayed silent for 2 breaths. 3, then moved on down the hall. Another set of steps followed, faster, descending. A door on the 2nd floor opened and shut. The building settled again into pipe rattle and rain hiss. Her lungs finally released. "Keep going," he said, voice lower now, roughened by pain and restraint. She swallowed and resumed. "Who was looking for you?" He held her gaze for a beat that felt longer than it was. "Men who prefer witnesses quiet." The words hit like cold water down her spine. "You brought this to my door." "I came because you can close me without paperwork, and because you don't ask names." He paused as she cinched another knot. "And because I was told you keep children out of harm's way." Her chest tightened. "Who told you that?" He didn't answer. By 3:24, she had 7 sutures in place and reinforced with steri strips where the tear widened near the back edge. She dressed the line with non-adherent pad and pressure wrap around his lower torso, careful not to bind too tightly for breathing. Her kitchen clock clicked loud in the pauses between their words. Rain traced the fire escape outside like static. "You need imaging," she said. "Tonight. Hidden internal bleeding can wait and then drop you." "Not tonight. Then at dawn." "We'll see." "No," she snapped, then dropped her voice when Mateo coughed again in the bedroom. "Listen to me. Fever, dizziness, shortness of breath, abdominal swelling, fainting. Any of those, and you go to a hospital whether you like it or not." He studied her face as if evaluating terms in a contract. "Write it down." She tore the back from the electric notice envelope and wrote warning signs in block letters, then added antibiotic dosing from the sample blister pack in her kit. Her fingers steadied as she wrote. Protocol calmed the chaos into lanes. A sudden hard knock slammed the building's front door downstairs, reverberating through pipes and stair rails. Voices rose, sharp and impatient. Ivy's shoulders jumped. The man was already on his feet, one hand braced on the table, the other sliding inside his discarded jacket. "Don't," she said instantly. "Not in here." His gaze cut to her, assessing. Then he withdrew his empty hand and reached instead for his phone from the inner pocket. The screen lit his face in pale blue. He pressed one number. A man answered at once. "Sir." "3rd floor corridor, west stair," he said, each word clipped. "2 unknowns at entry, quiet intercept. No police at the building." A pause. Understood. 90 seconds. He ended the call and looked at Ivy. "Wake your brother. Move him to the bathroom. Sit on the floor between the tub and sink. Keep lights off." Her body stalled just for an instant, the command colliding with terror. Bathroom meant hard tile and no window, yes. But it also meant admitting this was real enough to hide from. Her knees felt hollow. "I can't. If he panics, his breathing." His voice dropped, barely contained steel. "Ms. Torres, do you understand me?" The question wasn't loud. It carried more force than shouting. She nodded once, sharp, and moved. Mateo stirred when she lifted him, confused and warm with sleep. "Ivy, what time is it?" "Storm check," she whispered against his hair, borrowing the game she used during Thunder. "Blanket fort in the bathroom for 5 minutes. Quiet mission." He mumbled a small protest, then wrapped his arms around her neck. She carried him to the bathroom, set him on the folded laundry hamper, handed him his inhaler and spacer, then crouched eye level. "2 puffs now, just because the air's cold," she said. "Can you do it for me?" He did, sleepy and obedient. She kissed his forehead, tucked a towel around his shoulders, and positioned herself between him and the door as she cracked it open 1 inch to the hallway. From the kitchen, the man's silhouette held near the apartment entrance, posture balanced despite the fresh bandage under his shirt. He had not drawn a weapon. He had turned off the kitchen light, leaving only stove hood glow, reducing sight lines from the peephole. Command mode through logistics, not noise. 30 seconds stretched. Then came footsteps in the stairwell, rapid and heavy, followed by a thud, a grunt, and a terse voice Ivy recognized from nowhere in her life, but instantly trusted by tone alone. "Building sealed, sir." Another voice, breathless, farther away. "Wrong floor, man, wrong floor." "Keep moving," the first voice said, flat and final. Silence dropped back over the hallway, thicker than before. A minute later, 2 soft taps sounded at Ivy's door, then 1. Patterned, approved. The man opened the door 2 inches without removing the chain and murmured to someone outside. Low exchange. Professional cadence. "Any visuals?" he asked. Negative on confirmation. They peeled East Alley in a gray sedan. Plate partial logged, front and rear entries covered. "Camera?" "Corner bodega has street angle. We already requested copy." "Stay invisible." "Yes, sir." The door shut. Locks engaged again. Ivy stayed in the bathroom until his footsteps approached, measured and unhurried. He stopped at the threshold and kept his distance. "It's clear," he said. "You can bring him out." Her legs trembled when she stood, but she kept her voice even for Mateo. "Mission complete. We did it." Mateo blinked up at her as she carried him back to bed. "Was there thunder?" "Just building noise," she said, smoothing his blanket. "Go back to sleep." By 3:47, he was breathing deeply again. Inhaler on the nightstand at 010. In the kitchen, the man had put his bloodied shirt into a plastic bag she had handed him and was buttoning a clean black one taken from somewhere inside his folded jacket. Movement slower now. Pain had begun to edge through the anesthetic. He hit it well, but she saw the slight stiffness at his right side. "You need observation," she said. "I have a medic downstairs." "Then let him check the dressing in 2 hours." He inclined his head. "Done." She pulled off her gloves and dropped them into the trash, then scrubbed her hands at the sink until the smell of iron faded under dish soap. When she turned back, a thick envelope sat on the table near the cold coffee mug, water-spotted but sealed. "I don't take blood money," she said. "It's not payment for silence." He set a smaller stack of folded bills beside the envelope. "It covers tonight's supplies and your lost shift if you stay home tomorrow." "I didn't agree to that." "You don't need to." His dark gaze held hers, direct and unreadable. "I was told you bargain with facts, so here are facts. 2 men tracked me to your block. They now know this building exists to me. That creates risk for you whether you touched me or not." Her skin prickled again at the implication. "What is in the envelope?" "Protection that files in daylight." He reached for his jacket, now draped over one shoulder. "Open it after sunrise with coffee. Not now." She hated that he could still sound formal in her kitchen, while her pulse hadn't dropped below panic. "And if I say no?" "Then you say no in writing, witnessed. And I remove my name from your door entirely." He moved toward the hall, then paused. "Until then, keep your chain engaged. Don't answer unknown knocks. If anyone asks, you never saw me." He opened the door and glanced once down the stairwell where no sound remained but old pipes and distant rain. At the threshold, he looked back, voice quieter than it had been all night. "You stitched clean work, Miss Torres. Thank you." Then he was gone, footsteps descending with two others she could not see. Ivy locked every lock, slid a chair under the knob, though she knew it was symbolic, and stood in the middle of her kitchen while dawn began to gray the window edges. Her hands finally started to shake in full. The envelope stared back at her from the table, heavy and dry despite the rain, her name written across the front in precise black ink. She did not open it. Not yet. She sat beside it until the first bus brakes hissed on the avenue below, listening to Mateo breathe from the next room and to the building wake around her. And when sunlight finally reached the chipped laminate, she understood the night had not ended at her door. Sunlight crept across the chipped laminate in a thin, pale band, catching on the sealed envelope and making the black ink of her name look carved instead of written. Ivy stayed seated with both hands wrapped around her cooling mug, listening to the building wake one pipe knock at a time, until her phone buzzed against the table and made her flinch hard enough to spill coffee over her knuckles. Unknown number. She let it ring once, twice, then answered without lifting her voice. Yes. Miss Torres. A woman's tone, clipped and professional. My name is Sloan. I work for Mr. Moretti. Do not open your door for anyone except this sequence. 2 soft knocks, a pause, then 1. Ivy's gaze snapped to the door. No sound in the hall yet. Anyone can say that on a phone. Correct, the woman said. You placed 7 stitches, interrupted, with reinforcement strips at the posterior edge. You wrote warning signs on the back of an electric notice envelope. He still has that paper in his inside pocket. Ivy looked at the matching envelope in front of her, then at the bedroom doorway where Mateo still slept. What do you want? Entry for 3 people. Female medic first, then me, then building locksmith. 3 minutes to secure your locks and hallway line of sight. Mr. Moretti's orders are active until threat assessment clears. The word orders tightened something in her chest. I didn't agree to any arrangement. Understood. You can decline after a formal waiver with counsel. Right now, your front door has 1 deadbolt, 1 chain, and a warped frame. We would like to fix that before school traffic starts. At 6:07 a.m., the knock pattern sounded exactly as promised. Ivy checked the peephole and saw a woman in navy scrubs holding a hard case, another in a charcoal coat with an earpiece and still shoulders, and a broad man with a tool bag kept 2 steps back. She kept the chain on and opened the door 3 inches. Hands where I can see them, she said. All 3 raised open palms without argument. You step in first, Ivy told the medic. Only you. The medic entered slowly, shoes wiped on the mat, eyes scanning once before settling on Ivy's face. Early 30s, dark braid, calm expression. Danny, she said. No touching unless you consent. Sloan followed when Ivy nodded. Then the locksmith, who moved straight to the frame and crouched at once, quiet as if he had done this in occupied apartments for years. Sloan spoke into her mic without raising her volume. Entry confirmed. 2 minors. Correction, 1 minor, 1 adult. Interior stable. Start hall sweep. Ivy's throat tightened at the word minors, at being reduced to a category in someone else's protocol, but she held steady. You don't go near my brother's room. Agreed, Sloan said. No one enters without your permission. Mateo coughed from the bedroom, a rough morning sound. Ivy was already moving when Danny lifted a hand. May I listen from the doorway only? She asked. If he's asthmatic, cold, damp mornings can spike him. Ivy hesitated, then gave one short nod. Danny stayed exactly on the threshold while Ivy helped Mateo sit up and use his inhaler with the spacer, counting the breaths softly until the tightness eased from his small shoulders. He blinked at the unfamiliar voices in the kitchen. Who's here? Maintenance, Ivy said. It was not true, but it was close enough to keep him calm. Stay in bed 5 more minutes. When she stepped back into the kitchen, the locksmith had already fitted a steel reinforcement plate over the strike area and was replacing screws with longer anchors. Sloane stood at the window, barely moving, watching the street below through a narrow gap in the curtain. Black sedan, northeast corner, she said into the mic. Engine off. Driver remains in vehicle. Log plate. Ivy's skin prickled. You see it now? We saw it at 4:12 and 5:03 from rotating pass-throughs, Sloane said. We needed confirmation of pattern before waking you. The calm certainty in her voice made the room feel both safer and smaller. Ivy set her mug down carefully. Where is he? Danny met her eyes first. Awake. Vitals stable. Dressing intact. That wasn't the question, and all 3 of them knew it. Sloane answered anyway. Mr. Moretti is at a secure location 7 minutes away. Her phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Sloane gave a small nod. Take it on speaker if you want transparency. Ivy answered and pressed speaker. Luca's voice came through rougher than at her door, lower and edged with fatigue. Ms. Torres. The simple formality unsettled her more than urgency would have. Your people are in my kitchen. My people are reinforcing your apartment. A brief pause, as if he shifted and pain caught him. You can remove them with 1 sentence after we complete immediate protocol. What does immediate include? New lock hardware, exterior watch-through school drop-off, medical check for your brother's inhaler supply, and legal review of what I left on your table. His words stayed clipped. High consequence and no decoration. No one touches your property without your consent. No one enters your brother's room. Do you understand me? She almost laughed at the audacity of being commanded in her own home. But the black sedan downstairs sat like proof against pride. I understand the words. I don't accept indefinite control. Not asking for indefinite. His voice dropped, barely contained strain under it. As of this minute, I'm asking for 6 hours. Sloane's head turned slightly, listening to a feed in her earpiece. South stair clear, she said to the room, then into comms. Rotate at 10. Luca continued. At 7 o'clock, my attorney calls your phone. You can decline every document in that envelope with her on record. Until then, let them work. Ivy stared at the envelope, then at Mateo's inhaler on the counter where she had set it after checking the dose. 010. 6 hours, she said. Then we renegotiate. Accepted. The line went silent. By 6:31, the front door shut with a heavier, cleaner seal. The locksmith demonstrated the upgraded deadbolt twice, then left through the stairwell without a word. Sloane placed a small panic button the size of a key fob near the stove and another beside Ivy's bed. Press once for dispatch to call you, she said. Press and hold for active response. Your choice whether to use them. I don't sign anything yet, Ivy said. You sign nothing until counsel, Sloane agreed. Danny opened a compact case and laid out a pediatric nebulizer mask, peak flow meter, and 2 boxed rescue inhalers with pharmacy labels still sealed. These came through legitimate prescription transfer to your brother's clinic file at 548, she said. You can verify with the pharmacy when they open. Ivy frowned. Who authorized that? You did, effectively, Danny said gently. You signed a release at the clinic 2 months ago, allowing emergency transfer if current caregiver couldn't be reached. We paid the refill and expedited it. No debt tied to your name. That precision made anger harder to hold. Ivy checked the labels anyway, every line, every number. Mateo's name was spelled correctly. The dosage matched. She set one box in the medicine tin and kept the other on the counter, fingertips lingering on cardboard as if touch could confirm stability. At 6:52, Mateo sat at the table in his school hoodie, eating toast while watching Sloane with solemn curiosity. Sloane, to her credit, spoke to him like he was a person and not collateral. "You like dinosaurs or space?" she asked. "Both," he said, then pointed to her earpiece. "Are you secret police?" Sloane's mouth almost softened. "No, I'm logistics." He seemed to consider that as a respectable profession. At exactly 7 o'clock, Ivy's phone lit with a Manhattan landline. She answered on speaker while Sloane and Danny remained in the kitchen, visible and silent. "Ms. Torres, good morning. Bianca Rizzo, counsel for Moretti Holdings." The woman's voice was precise, older, and brisk in the way of people who bill by 6-minute increments. "I am calling to witness your decision regarding a property instrument delivered overnight." "I haven't opened it yet," Ivy said. "Then open it now. Read only page 1 aloud." Her fingers were unsteady when she broke the seal. Inside lay a folded deed packet, notarized, stamped, and frighteningly official. She unfolded the top page and felt the room tilt. "Deed transfer," she read, voice thin. "Property address, this building. Grantor, Astor Community Paper LLC. Grantee, Torres Family Residential Trust. Trustee, Ivy Elena Torres." Mateo looked up at her, toast halfway to his mouth. "That's our building." Ivy swallowed. "There's no way this is real." "It is recorded for filing at 8:30 a.m. unless you reject," Bianca said. "There is also a temporary protective trust rider preventing sale, collateralization, or forced vacancy for 36 months. You cannot be displaced during that period." The words struck in fragments rather than meaning. No forced vacancy. No displacement. Her landlord's missed calls, the damp maintenance notice under her door, the endless calculation of rent against medicine, all of it suddenly suspended over a drop she had not seen coming. "What does he want in return?" Ivy asked. "Nothing from your body, labor, or custody," Bianca said. "You owe no personal service and no financial repayment. The instrument is unilateral." Sloane kept her gaze on the window, giving Ivy privacy she could still feel as surveillance. Danny watched Ivy's face with clinical concern, as if waiting for the adrenaline crash to finally land. "There's no such thing as unilateral at this level," Ivy said. Bianca was quiet for one measured breath. "Then read the letter clipped behind the writer. That is not legal language. It may answer your question." Ivy found a single page on plain paper, folded once. The handwriting was the same precise black ink from the envelope front. "Ms. Torres, you closed a wound at 3 a.m. without asking who I was worth. That debt does not get settled in cash. Keep or reject the deed as you choose. If you reject, my office files the revocation and you owe me nothing. If you keep it, the building is yours under trust protections and external audit. No one sells your home out from under your family again." She turned the page over. One line on the back, shorter, less controlled. "I had a sister who waited for care while men argued about payment. The kitchen went very still. Even Mateo seemed to sense something had shifted and lowered his toast without taking a bite." Ivy read the line again, slower this time, and felt the night reassemble itself in a different shape. The refusal to go to a hospital, the insistence on timing, the way he had watched her check Mateo before he let himself sit down. Not softness, not performance. A fracture with rules built around it. Bianca's voice returned, quieter now. For the record, Miss Torres, do you wish to accept temporary filing pending your independent review? Ivy looked at the new lock, at the inhaler boxes, at the reinforced door frame still smelling faintly of cut metal. She looked at Mateo, who was watching her with trusting, unguarded eyes she'd spent years trying to keep untouched by adult bargains. Temporary filing only, she said. Contingent on independent counsel and full chain of title. If anything is forged or coercive, I revoke. Noted, Bianca said. I'll send certified copies to an attorney of your choosing within the hour. The call ended. At 7:18, another message arrived from Luca's number. Plain text and nothing else. Fever 100.8. No dizziness. Dressing dry. Breathing hurts on deep inhale. She stared at it, thrown by the blunt compliance with her instructions. Danny glanced over her shoulder and lifted her brows. He actually reported, Danny murmured. Ivy typed before she could second-guess the impulse. Take the antibiotic with food, not coffee. Recheck temp in 1 hour. If pain sharpens or breathing worsens, imaging today. Non-negotiable. 3 dots appeared, vanished, then returned. Understood. Sloane touched her earpiece again. School route escort is set. 1 car ahead, 1 behind, no contact unless requested. Ivy nodded, still reading the handwritten line in her mind. Men argued about payment, a sister waiting. The dominant force that had entered her kitchen at 3 in the morning now carried a contour she had not expected, shaped by grief instead of appetite. By 7:40, she zipped Mateo's backpack, checked his inhaler pocket twice, and slipped the panic fob onto her own keyring with fingers that finally felt less numb. When she opened the apartment door, the hallway looked the same as every other weekday. Peeling paint, weak light, someone's grocery flyer trampled near the stairs. But nothing in her body believed in ordinary anymore. On the sidewalk, the black sedan at the corner pulled away the moment she appeared. Smooth and unhurried, disappearing into morning traffic as if it had never been there at all. Ivy watched the sedan merge into traffic until it vanished behind a city bus, then forced her shoulders down and took Mateo's hand before he could feel the tremor in hers. The morning smelled of wet asphalt and burnt coffee drifting from the corner cart. Ordinary scents over an ordinary sidewalk, but she could feel the perimeter around them in small, precise signs. A woman with a stroller pausing too long at the curb, a man in a navy cap pretending to scroll while his eyes tracked reflections in a deli window, the black SUV idling half a block ahead, with wipers moving in a steady metronome. Mateo swung his backpack with the distracted joy of a child who had survived 1 hard season and expected breakfast to solve the next. Can I bring the space book tomorrow? If your homework is done tonight, she said, and smiled when he groaned dramatically. Sloane fell into step on Ivy's left at the crosswalk, not touching, not crowding, all protocol and clean lines, in a charcoal coat. Route remains clear. School entrance has 2 plainclothes posted. They won't approach unless there's contact. Contact from who? Ivy asked. Sloane's gaze stayed forward. From anyone who says your name like they own it. The answer sat under Ivy's ribs like ice. She kept walking. At the school gate, Mateo hugged her fast and hard, then ran 3 steps, turned back, and ran to hug her again. Ivy held him long enough to feel his breathing, smooth and unstrained, then let go and watched him disappear into the bright noise of the hallway. Relief came in a narrow wave and left just as quickly, replaced by the old dread of what waited after drop-off. Work, rent, calls, men with polished shoes and unpolished intentions. Her phone buzzed before she reached the corner. Luca's number. She stared at it for a second too long, then answered. You should be resting. You should be inside a secured vehicle, he said, voice rough from pain and not enough sleep. The low baritone still carried command, even over static. Turn right, black SUV. She turned and saw it roll forward to the curb in perfect alignment with her stride. I don't take orders well at 8 in the morning, she said. Noted. Consider this a request tied to active risk. A pause, a breath that sounded controlled by force. Council found movement on the building paper tied to your address. I want you present when we lock it down. Ivy's throat tightened. You want me present? I need your signature to block a fraudulent filing before noon. That changed the geometry. Need, not want. Process, not possession. Sloan opened the rear door. Miss Torres. Ivy got in, rain tapping soft against tinted glass as the SUV pulled into traffic. She could hear Luca breathing on the line, slightly shallow at the end of each sentence. You didn't eat with the antibiotic, she said. Silence for one beat. Then, half a protein bar. Not enough. Another brief silence, and she could picture the restrained irritation in his eyes. You called that non-negotiable? It was. A sound that might have been a tired laugh moved through the speaker. Then I'll correct it. The call ended, and Ivy sat back against leather that probably cost more than her monthly rent used to be. Outside, Queens slid by in wet gray blocks, laundromats and check-cashing storefronts, and dented roll-down gates painted with faded suns. Inside, the cabin smelled faintly of cedar and clean fabric. Wealth and survival pressed shoulder to shoulder until she couldn't tell where one ended and the other started. By 8:16, the SUV turned into a private underground entrance beneath a glass tower she recognized from the delivery run, and security doors opened before they reached them. Ivy followed Sloan through polished corridors where even silence seemed expensive. Then into a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows and a table long enough to seat 12 people who never worried about grocery totals. Luca stood at the far end in a black shirt with the sleeves rolled once. No jacket. Color still a shade too pale against olive skin. The bandage beneath his shirt pulled when he shifted. He hid the discomfort with practiced stillness, but she saw the tightness at the edge of his mouth when he straightened. Bianca Rizzo rose from her seat with a legal pad and 3 stacked folders. Ms. Torres, thank you for coming on short notice. I came because fraudulent filing gets my attention, Ivy said. It should. Bianca slid a document toward her. At 7:52, a lien packet was submitted electronically against your building by Astor Community Paper LLC, allegedly for debt default. Signature block is forged. Notary seal is cloned. Ivy looked from the page to Luca. You transferred the building out of that shell this morning. I did, he said. Then how are they still filing under it? Because someone inside their chain is fast and desperate. His voice stayed level, but rage sat under it, barely contained and cold. And because men like your landlord's backers count on tenants never seeing the paperwork until the lock changes. Fear climbed her spine with familiar precision. She remembered envelopes damp from hallway floors, polite threats disguised as maintenance notices, calls that came after midnight. She also noticed Luca's right hand braced on the chair back, fingers flexing once against pain before going still. Sit, she said. Bianca blinked. Ms. Torres. Not you. Him. Luca's gaze sharpened. We don't have time for. If your fever climbs and you fold in the middle of this, I lose the only witness who knows the chain before dawn. She held his eyes. Sit. For a moment the room held its breath. 3 lawyers and a security chief watching a seamstress from Queens tell a man like Luca Moretti what to do in his own building. Then he pulled out the chair and sat. Controlled, expression unreadable. "Happy?" he asked quietly. "No," she said, stepping closer with clinical calm she'd earned the hard way. "Take a full breath." He did. Pain flickered across his face, quick and involuntary. "Food," she said to no one and everyone. Sloan moved first, already speaking into her mic. Protein tray and electrolyte now. The efficiency should have unnerved her. Instead, it settled something in her chest. This was what he did when danger appeared. Logistics, containment, action. It was useful. It was frightening. It was, against her better judgment, compelling. That was the collision she couldn't untangle. She trusted his systems under pressure and distrusted what being inside those systems could cost. She stepped back, palms damp, and focused on the documents. "What do you need from me?" Bianca pointed to 2 flagged lines. Affidavit of non-consent regarding prior landlord communications, plus an emergency occupancy declaration naming your brother as resident dependent. Once filed, any attempted removal triggers immediate injunction. "I want my own lawyer copied on every page," Ivy said. "Of course," Bianca replied. Not of course after the fact, now. Ivy took out her phone, opened her contacts, and called the clinic attorney who had once helped a line cook avoid predatory wage garnishment. "Ada, it's Ivy. I need you on speaker for a live document review, 10 minutes ago." Ada came on breathless but sharp. "Send photos as we speak." Ivy photographed each page and sent them in a tight sequence, then waited while Ada read in real time and challenged 2 clauses Bianca removed without argument. Power shifted in small increments, line by line, and Ivy felt it happen under her hands like fabric finally easing under steam. When she finished signing, Luca watched her with that dark, assessing stillness that made rooms reorganize around him. "You build walls fast," he said. "I build exits," she answered. His gaze didn't leave her face. "Good." The door opened before anyone could say more. A security aide stepped in, posture rigid. "Sir, Renzo Vale is in the public lobby with 2 men and a notary. He's demanding to serve Miss Torres directly." The room went cold. Luca rose too quickly, jaw tightening as the wound pulled. "He doesn't come within 10 feet of her." Ivy stood too, pulse hammering. "No, he serves through counsel, with witnesses. I want him on camera and on record." Sloane's eyes flicked to her, then to Luca, recalculating. Luca held Ivy's stare for 1 long second, then gave a single nod. "Your call," he said. "But you stay behind me." "I stay where I choose," she said, voice steady despite the heat in her blood. "And I choose where the microphones are." The lobby was all marble and muted gold. Sunlight fractured through glass into hard geometric patterns across the floor. Renzo Vale stood beside a decorative planter in a camel coat too elegant for the weather. Smile polished and bright enough to pass for charm to anyone who had never seen it up close. Up close, the tell was still there. A twitch at the jaw just before he threatened. His gaze landed on Ivy and warmed in a way that made her skin crawl. "There she is. Ivy Carino. I've been trying to reach you. Paperwork mix-up." "Don't call me that," she said. He spread his hands in practiced innocence, notary folder tucked under one arm. "We can fix this quietly. You sign, I withdraw claims, everyone goes home." Luca stepped half a pace forward, presence cutting the room into before and after. "You do not address her directly." Renzo smiled wider. "And you are?" "Sufficient," Luca said. Ownership language vibrated just under the surface, and Ivy felt it gather like storm pressure. She moved before either man could take the center. "Mr. Vale?" she said, turning to the uniformed lobby manager who had arrived pale and tense. "Please confirm all lobby cameras are recording audio." "Yes, ma'am," he said quickly. "Good." Ivy raised her phone, thumb already on record. "State your full name and reason for attempting personal service." Renzo's smile thinned. "You think this is a game? I think men who forge liens prefer hallways without witnesses." She angled the screen so he could see the red recording light. "Name, reason." He glanced at Luca, then back at her. "Renzo Vale. Debt recovery. She owes under a private note." Ada's voice came through Ivy's phone speaker, loud and crisp from wherever she was sprinting through her own morning. "Mr. Vale, counsel present. Produce original wet ink note and chain of assignment now, or cease contact and transmit through legal channels." Renzo's jaw twitched again. Who the hell is this? "Attorney of record," Ada said, "and this call is being preserved." One of Renzo's men shifted, hand inside his coat, and 3 of Luca's security personnel stepped into view as if the marble had produced them. No shouting, no scrambling. Just controlled positioning and a perimeter that closed with professional precision. Luca's voice dropped to that dangerous quiet that carried farther than anger. "Hands visible, all of you." Renzo's man slowly removed his hand, empty, and lifted both palms. Ivy kept her phone steady, even though her wrist still ached where Renzo had once grabbed too hard. "You contacted my residence. You approached my school route. You attempted fraudulent filing. From this point forward, any contact is harassment and extortion. Do you understand me?" The question landed exactly as Dominant's test, and Renzo heard it. His expression cracked for the first time. "You're making a mistake," he said softly. "These people don't protect for free." Ivy felt Luca beside her, heat and control and danger wrapped in tailored black, and refused to lean on it. "Then watch me read every invoice," she said. "You don't get my fear as collateral anymore." Renzo looked to Luca, contempt sharpening his tone. "She yours now?" Luca answered without taking his eyes off Renzo. "She is under my protection, not my ownership. Learn the difference." The lobby held still. Staff frozen behind desks, elevator doors opening and closing on other lives that had no idea this argument might redraw one woman's future. Ada spoke again through the phone. "Miss Torres, ask the notary for commission number." Ivy did. The notary, sweating now, stammered a number that Bianca, arriving at Ivy's shoulder with tablet in hand, verified in seconds. "Expired 6 months ago," Bianca said. "Impersonation filed." Renzo turned on the notary with a glare that could strip paint, then caught himself too late. The polished mask slipped. Cameras saw it. Audio caught the silence that followed. Ivy handed her phone to Sloan without looking away from him. "Send copy to Ada, Bianca, and Precinct Financial Crimes." "Already transmitting," Sloan said. Renzo took one step back. "You think this ends with paperwork?" "It starts there," Ivy said. "And it ends with you away from my family." Luca gave a small motion with 2 fingers. Security closed in, not touching Renzo, simply guiding his options until only the exit remained. The lobby manager exhaled shakily, as if he had been holding air for 10 minutes. At the doors, Renzo looked over his shoulder, smile gone. "This city eats people like you." Ivy held his gaze. "Not today." He left. Only when the doors sealed behind him did Ivy realize how hard her heart was hammering. Luca turned toward her, expression carved from restraint. "You should not have stood that close," he said. You should not decide my distance, she replied. A muscle moved in his jaw. Then he nodded once, accepting the boundary even while it cost him. Then we set rules you can live with. Bianca stepped in before the moment could tilt anywhere else. Emergency filings are live. Fraud report accepted. Contact restrictions drafted for signature within the hour. Practical. Measurable. Real. Ivy took her phone back, checked that the audio had uploaded to 3 separate folders, and only then let herself breathe all the way down. Fear was still there, bright and animal under her skin. So was the pull toward the man standing too close. Wounded and dangerous and unexpectedly careful with her, no. She met Luca's eyes. Protection with protocol, transparency, no surprise moves. His voice was low, steady, and absolute. Agreed. Put it in writing now, Ivy said, still holding her phone like evidence could evaporate if she loosened her grip. Not a verbal agreement in a lobby. Bianca was already opening a draft on her tablet. Mutual protection protocol, revocable by either party with 24-hour notice, except active threat windows. She looked up. Miss Torres, read each clause before we lock. Ivy did, line by line, while the lobby's crystal sconces threw fractured light over marble and made everyone look sharper than they were. Clause 1. No personal claims attached to financial assistance. Clause 2. All security measures disclosed in advance unless immediate threat. Clause 3. Independent counsel copied on every filing. Clause 4. School and residence routes treated as consent-based protective zones, not permanent surveillance. She made Bianca strike one sentence that gave operational discretion without notification. Bianca struck it. Luca said nothing, but his attention stayed on Ivy's face, not the screen. By 9:02 a.m., Ivy signed with Ada on speaker, and Luca signed after her, his signature precise even with pain tightening his shoulder. Sloan uploaded the executed copy to 3 encrypted folders, and one plain PDF Ada demanded for court use. Ivy watched the file names appear on her own phone before she breathed out. The next call came from the precinct's financial crimes unit, a detective with a tired voice who sounded ready to postpone everything until business hours swallowed urgency. Ada cut through that in 12 clipped sentences, citing extortion, forged instruments, impersonation, and school route intimidation with timestamps. The detective's tone changed. "Bring originals," he said, "not copies." "I have originals," Ivy said, "and redundant backups." "Good. Desk 12. Ask for Detective Hahn." An hour later, she sat at desk 12 in a room that smelled like printer toner and wet coats, her knee bouncing under molded plastic while Hahn cataloged each item in evidence sleeves. Her bodega sidewalk recording of Renzo threatening Mateo's route. The photo of the forged lien notice from her tote. The audio and video from the tower lobby confrontation. Bianca's verified notary expiration record. The old maintenance assessment notice she had pulled damp from under her door, now linked by address and corporate shell to Astor's pressure campaign. Hahn looked up at that one. "You kept this?" "I keep everything that arrives after midnight, with no return signature," she said. He gave a small nod that carried respect instead of pity. "Smart." He called in another officer, and together they logged chain of custody while Ivy watched each barcode printed and attached. Nothing left her hands without a receipt. No one waved her away with promises. At 11:26, as rain restarted in a thin diagonal sheet against the precinct windows, Hahn returned with one more development. Your partial plate from the gray sedan matched a rental registered to a subcontractor paid by Astor Community Paper. We picked up one driver. He's giving names slowly. "Does he tie to Renzo?" Ada asked through speaker. Directly by payment trail, yes. The floor under Ivy felt steadier for the first time all day. By early afternoon, they moved to emergency civil court where calendars were packed and patience was thin. But paperwork that precise cut through noise fast. Ivy sat with Ada and Bianca at separate tables, a deliberate arrangement that made boundaries visible. Luca stayed behind the rail with Sloane. Dark suit back on, posture rigid, saying only what counsel needed. His presence still altered the room, but this time the record belonged to Ivy. Renzo entered in the same camel coat, charm restored at a distance, jaw tight up close. He tried to catch her eye with that polished smile he used before threats. She did not look away first. When the judge asked for exhibits, Ada moved like a blade. Audio file 1 played in open court. Renzo's voice mentioning her brother's route. Audio file 2 from the lobby, private note claim without chain of assignment. Video, expired notary, coercive posture, attempted direct service after counsel notice. Photo packet, forged lien formatting anomalies, corporate registry trace, Aster shell links to Renzo's debt network, maintenance notice comparison, identical footer code used in 3 contested displacement cases. Renzo's attorney argued misunderstanding, clerical errors, overreach. Then the prosecutor from financial crimes stood and requested immediate remand on extortion and fraud pending arraignment, citing new arrest from the sedan subcontractor and corroborating testimony expected within hours. The judge's voice stayed dry and firm. Temporary liens voided. Permanent restraining order granted for Miss Torres and her minor brother. No contact direct or indirect. Service through counsel only. Matter referred criminally with remand as requested. Renzo finally looked at Ivy without the smile. "This isn't over," he said. Too low for the room, but not for her. The bailiff heard enough. "You're done speaking." He was led out in cuffs, still trying to hold dignity while cameras from the hallway caught only his profile and the twitch at his jaw he could never control. 3 days passed before the next major hearing, and those 3 days were full of unglamorous victories that felt more real than marble lobbies. The pharmacy confirmed Mateo's transfer and refills as legitimate and paid. His school nurse accepted the updated asthma action plan after Danny arranged a same-day clinic physician signature through proper channels. Ivy answered the landlord's third call with Ada on the line and listened while he shifted from threats to apology once he learned the building title had moved into the Torres Family Residential Trust under court scrutiny. The maintenance assessment was formally withdrawn in writing with a compliance warning attached. At the criminal arraignment, Han's team submitted full evidence logs and the bodega camera copy Sloane's network had requested that first night. It showed Renzo's approach angle, his hand on Ivy's wrist, and the forged packet visible under his arm. The valet from the penthouse, Thomas Elian, appeared by affidavit first and in person later, knuckle-heeled, voice shaking but clear. He admitted he had been pressured by Aster-linked men to redirect deliveries and identify unfamiliar visitors on Luca's floor. Wrong door had been a warning, not a mistake. The split knuckle came from refusing to open a resident file without authorization. His statement connected the tower pattern to the street pattern and closed the loop Ivy had sensed before anyone said it aloud. That same evening, Luca finally got imaging under protest and no theatrics. No internal bleed, deep, soft tissue trauma, clean closure, mandated rest he ignored less than expected because Ivy texted medication times and Sloane enforced them with professional indifference. Their exchanges stayed practical, almost austere, but the current underneath kept tightening. Take antibiotic with actual food. Done. Temp, 99.4. Any dizziness? No. Good. Keep it that way. By the second week of November, Court orders were finalized. Renzo remained in custody pending trial on extortion, assault, fraud, and notary impersonation conspiracy, and Astor's shell entities were frozen under concurrent investigations. In Surrogate's court, Ivy signed the last trust administration packet with Ada beside her, then took the certified deed set in both hands and felt the paperweight like something denser than property. Stability, choice, a door that locked from her side. That afternoon, she stood in the ground floor unit of her own building, a former storage space with cracked tile and one stubborn radiator, while an inspector reviewed plans for a licensed evening clinic. Danny walked the checklist with her. Refrigeration logs, Sharp's disposal contract, emergency oxygen, pediatric spacer stock, documentation software that could run on 2 old laptops if needed. Luca's funding came through an audited community health grant Bianca had structured with public reporting requirements and independent oversight. No hidden clauses. No private debt. When the inspector left, Ivy found Luca waiting by the window, suit jacket off, bandage gone, scar line hidden under black cotton. Rain traced the glass behind him, soft and persistent. "Certificate posts in 48 hours, he said. "You sound disappointed it wasn't immediate." "I prefer immediate." She almost smiled. "I know." Silence settled, not heavy this time, just full. He looked at the new deadbolt on the clinic door, then at her hands, then back to her face as if deciding where to place the next sentence. "I can keep a team on this block indefinitely," he said. "No blind spots. No approach within 50 feet unless cleared. You and Mateo would not have to think about doors again." The offer was safety and also gravity. The old tension laid out clean. Ivy stepped closer, close enough to see the faint fatigue under his eyes he never let anyone mention. "I will always think about doors," she said. "That's how we survived before you. It's how we stay ourselves after you." His jaw shifted once. "You think I want to take that from you?" "I think power takes what it can, unless someone names limits." She held his gaze. "Here are mine. You don't own my hours. You don't direct my brother. You don't solve problems by moving me like furniture." His reply came low, controlled, and immediate. "Agreed. And if risk spikes, you tell me facts, not commands." A pause, then a nod. "I can do that." She believed him, not because he was gentle, but because he had let contracts and witnesses bind what men like him usually kept unwritten. Outside, a bus hissed at the curb. Upstairs, someone laughed in a hallway she now had legal power to repair. Ordinary sounds, earned the hard way. Luca's voice dropped softer than she had heard it. "Stay where I can keep you safe." Ivy felt the pull of him, of structure and force, and the dangerous relief of not standing alone. She also felt the keys in her pocket, the panic fob on her ring she hoped never to press, the certified deed copies in her bag, the clinic permit forms on the table behind her with her name on every page. "I stay where I choose," she said. He exhaled, something fierce easing rather than breaking. "Then choose." She reached for his hand, deliberate, no audience, no bargaining table between them. "I choose this building. I choose the clinic. I choose protocols that keep us honest." Her fingers tightened once. "And I choose you if you keep choosing the same rules when it's inconvenient." His hand closed around hers, warm and steady. "I will." At sunrise the next morning, she placed one certified deed copy in a fireproof box, one with Ada, and one scanned to cloud storage with 2-factor keys only she controlled. She labeled the evidence folder closed after Hahn confirmed indictments filed and no outstanding submissions required. She archived the audio files, the forged notices, the lobby footage, and the old maintenance paper that had once felt like a warning, and now read like a solved equation. Then she unlocked the clinic door for its first licensed night shift. Mateo asleep upstairs, inhalers stocked, lights steady, and Luca waiting across the hall without stepping over the threshold until she nodded him in.